Book review: The Family Inside. A gothic psychological thriller of family secrets and betrayal in a centuries-old mansion by Katie Garner. Katie Garner's The Family Inside is an evocative, gripping psychological thriller steeped in the gothic tradition, centered around a decaying ancestral estate, dark family secrets, and the unraveling mind of a young woman thrust into a legacy of betrayal. The novel delivers a deeply atmospheric and emotionally reading experience. With its expertly crafted tension-layered narrative and haunted setting, Garner's novel is both chilling mystery and an insightful exploration of generational trauma and identity. Plot summary: In The Family Inside, Katie Garner crafts tense, atmospheric psychological thriller set in the decaying halls of Blackwood House, remote centuries-old mansion on the windswept cliffs of northern England. The novel follows Isla Calder, a recently orphaned woman in her late 20s who inherits the ancestral home after the sudden and mysterious death of her estranged grandmother, Violet Blackwood. Having spent her childhood in foster care following mother's disappearance, Isla is shocked to learn she is the last surviving heir of the Blackwood family. Reluctantly returning to the estate, Isla plans to sell the property, but the mansion quickly takes hold of her, both physically and emotionally. As soon as she steps inside, old memories, long-repressed dreams, and the sense of being watched begin to unravel her grip on reality. The novel's setting, Blackwood House, is almost character in itself, filled with dark corridors, locked rooms, ancestral portraits with watchful eyes, and crumbling greenhouse overtaken by vines. The mansion is shrouded in secrets. Dilapidated nursery holds chilling clues to Isla's early years, and sealed-off wing hints at tragedies never spoken of. The howling winds, flickering candlelight, and smell of damp decay permeate every chapter, grounding the novel firmly in the Gothic tradition. The narrative alternates between Isla's point of view and fragments from hidden diary written decades earlier by a woman named Evelyn Blackwood, Violet's younger sister. Evelyn's diary slowly reveals tragic history of obsession, madness, and betrayal that parallels Isla's own descent into doubt and paranoia. As Isla investigates her family's past, she meets Dr. Leo Harrow, a local historian who has studied the Blackwood lineage. While he initially seems helpful and sympathetic, Isla begins to suspect that Leo has his own reasons for wanting to keep her at Blackwood House. Meanwhile, Mrs. Grayson, the housekeeper who has worked at the estate for over 40 years, offers cryptic warnings and seems to know more than she admits. Themes of intergenerational trauma, gaslighting, and identity are threaded throughout the novel. Isla struggles to understand whether the strange occurrences in the house, whispers in the walls, objects moving, and ghostly reflections are supernatural or manifestations of her crumbling mental state. The line between reality and delusion is expertly blurred by Garner's atmospheric prose and unreliable narration. Midway through the book, Isla discovers that her mother, long presumed dead, may have lived in the house for years after disappearing, and that Violet may have locked her away. Hidden staircase behind the library leads to secret chamber containing disturbing evidence, crib, torn family photographs, and collection of letters signed only with the initial E. As Isla digs deeper, she uncovers the twisted legacy of the Blackwood woman. Evelyn, once vibrant and ambitious, was institutionalized after a series of alleged breakdowns. Though her diary tells a different story, she suspected Violet of orchestrating her confinement in order to control the estate and suppress scandalous truths. Evelyn's writings hint that child, Isla's mother, was the product of a forbidden affair that Violet was determined to erase from family memory. In the climactic chapters, Isla is drugged by Mrs. Grayson, who has remained loyal to Violet and believes Isla must be cleansed of her Blackwood bloodline. Trapped in the underground wing, Isla relives fragments of her mother's captivity and comes face to face with final horror. Mummified body and rocking chair, later identified as Evelyn, left to die in isolation decades ago, with the help of Leo, who ultimately turns out to be Evelyn's grandson and distant cousin. They manage to expose the crimes committed by Violet and Mrs. Grayson, unraveling the Blackwood curse that haunted the estate for generations. In the novel's haunting final scene, Isla chooses not to sell the house but to restore it, determined to reclaim her family's legacy and give voice to the silenced women of her bloodline. The Family Inside is chilling and deeply psychological exploration of how the past imprints itself on the present. Richly drawn setting, layered characters, and plot full of revelations, Katie Garner's novel is masterclass in modern Gothic fiction. Setting: the haunting presence at Blackwood House. Blackwood House, perched on the windswept cliffs of northern England, is far more than a backdrop. It is character in its own right. From the moment protagonist Isla Calder arrives, the house exudes menace, history, and secrets. The cold stone walls, creaking floorboards, shrouded corridors, and sealed-off wings create labyrinth of dread that readers must navigate alongside Isla. The estate's dilapidated greenhouse, dust-laden nursery, and ancestral portraits seem to whisper forgotten truths. Garner's attention to detail conjures gothic atmosphere reminiscent of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House and Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, capturing both isolation and oppressive memory. Garner uses the setting to reflect Isla's psychological state. As Isla delves deeper into the family's past, the house grows darker, more confining, echoing her internal descent into fear. A certainty, this clever mirroring between protagonist and place contributes significantly to the story's creeping dread. Characterization. The fragility of memory and the strength of will. Isla Calder is a compelling protagonist, vulnerable yet resilient, wounded but determined, orphan young and raised in foster care. She is woman estranged from her roots and identity. Her inheritance of Blackwood House after the death of her enigmatic grandmother Violet Blackwood sets off a harrowing journey into her past. Isla's psychological unraveling is handled with remarkable nuance. Garner deftly blurs the lines between reality and delusion, grounding Isla's experiences in emotional truth even as the novel veers into the surreal. The supporting cast is equally well drawn. Violet, though deceased, casts long shadow over the narrative through journal entries, whispers from longtime housekeeper Mrs. Grayson, and remnants. Scattered through the house, Violet emerges as a powerful matriarch obsessed with legacy and control. Evelyn Blackwood, Violet's sister, is the tragic heart of the story. Her secret diary revealing long-buried truths in voice that refuses to be silenced. Evelyn's descent into madness, or perhaps society's rejection of her defiance, is chilling subplot that adds depth and poignancy. Dr. Leo Harrow, local historian who assists Isla, initially appears as romantic interest and rational anchor. However, his own connection to the Blackwood family, ultimately revealed to be that a distant relative, complicates his motives and adds a layer of tension to his relationship with Isla. His presence offers both foil and mirror to Isla as both characters grapple with how much of the past should be uncovered. Narrative structure, fragmented truths, and dual timelines. Garner employs the dual timeline narrative, interspersing Isla's first-person present-day perspective with excerpts from Evelyn Blackwood's diary written decades earlier. This technique enriches the plot with historical context while maintaining suspense. Each revelation from the past casts new light, or shadow, on Isla's discoveries, gradually unveiling multi-generational pattern of lies, confinement, and betrayal. The narrative pacing is deliberate and effective. Garner avoids cheap thrills, opting instead for slow burn unraveling that rewards patient readers. The mounting tension is psychological rather than physical, rooted in fear of the unknown and the betrayal of those closest to us. Themes, inheritance, identity, and the female voice at its core. The Family Inside is a novel about inheritance, not just of property or status, but of pain, secrets, and silence. Isla's journey is one of reclamation. She inherits not only the house, but the history of the women who came before her. Through her exploration of Evelyn's diary and confrontation with the legacy of Violet's cruelty, Isla seeks to understand who she is and whether she must accept or break from the family's dark traditions. The theme of silenced female voices is central. Evelyn, gaslit and institutionalized, represents generations of women erased from family histories. Isla's determination to uncover Evelyn's truth, even at great personal cost, becomes an act of resistance. The novel also explores societal views on mental illness and the weaponization of diagnosis against inconvenient women. Violet's manipulation of both her sister and daughter's fates underscores the perverse power dynamics at play within seemingly respectable families. Identity is another key theme. Isla's sense of self is fractured by her upbringing and lack of knowledge about her mother's fate. As the novel progresses, Isla pieces together not only her genealogy, but also her psychological foundation. By the final chapters, she is no longer a passive heir, but an active agent in reshaping the family legacy. Gothic elements and psychological depth. Garner seamlessly blends classic Gothic motifs, hidden passages, family curses, madness, ancestral guilt, with the modern sensibilities of psychological thriller. The novel's greatest strength lies in its ability to maintain suspense without resorting to overt horror. Instead, it relies on atmosphere, implication, and emotional realism. The question of whether the house is haunted in literal sense is left open-ended, allowing for both supernatural and psychological interpretations. The unreliable narration hallmark of psychological thrillers is executed masterfully. Isla's disorientation, nightmares, and hallucinations, possibly induced by trauma or perhaps the house itself, blur the reader's perception of reality. Garner keeps us guessing without feeling manipulative, offering portrait of psychological breakdown that is both believable and harrowing. Plot twists and revelations. A satisfying payoff, the novel builds to a series of revelations that are both shocking and well-earned. Isla discovers that her mother, presumed dead, had been confined in a secret room within the house. Evidence of Violet's obsessive need for control, the mummified remains of Evelyn in rocking chair preserved in forgotten wing of the house serve as grotesque symbol of familial neglect and cruelty. The climax is not action-packed in conventional sense, but is emotionally devastating. This is Grayson's betrayal, drugging Isla in misguided effort to cleanse the family line, underscores the theme of complicity and abuse. Leo's true heritage and his decision to help Isla rather than protect the family name provides redemptive counterpoint. Isla's decision at the end to remain at Blackwood House and restore it rather than sell it. This powerful act of defiance and healing. She chooses to honor the forgotten women and reclaim her voice, transforming House of Horror into one of memory and resistance. Inclusion. A standout entry in modern Gothic fiction, The Family Inside is a standout work in the modern Gothic genre with its richly drawn setting, complex characters, and resonant themes. Katie Garner has written a novel that is as intellectually engaging as it is emotionally intense. It is a meditation on inheritance, identity, and the strength it takes to confront the past. This is not a thriller of easy answers or quick scares. It is a slow, elegantly constructed novel that lingers long after the final page. For readers who enjoy psychological depths, atmospheric dread, and stories about strong women unearthing buried truths, The Family Inside is an unforgettable read.